Welcome back! So, this is the part that I'm really excited about. In this step, we're gonna actually get pose data from Tensorflow.js. And incidentally, I think this is the part that broke the Web Compon-o-tron, because we are trying to import some something that can't be really consumed as an ES module from these TensorFlow packages, and even trying to use some web dev server plugins, it's not working. So I'm going to use a little trick that I can't remember if I stole it or I found it or I came up with it. Either way, we're going to do something that I'm calling pre-bundling. But in the meantime, we have started our own project from a lit.dev, that's a lit element template off of GitHub. So this lit.dev template gives us a lot of goodies. It structures our project appropriately to be published. And so I'm excited about that. Let's see where we are right now, though. We actually have a video player, basically. So I'm going to do npm run serve. And I go into this component demo. And yeah, we have a video player here. We can play the video. We can now scrub around because we've modified our server with some middleware in the last step. And yeah, we can, you know, kind of go slow through it frame by frame. Do a number of things, just like a normal video player would. But now, we're going to start really small, though. We're not going to base it on the video player quite yet. We're just going to get things imported. And you'll see what I mean about not being able to import this stuff. As you might guess, the first part of this plan is to actually install our TensorFlow dependencies, the packages from npm. So let's just jump over to our package.json. I'm going to install these things as dev dependencies, though, because they're going to be dev dependencies. We're going to kind of bundle them, and they're not going to be used as official part of this project. We're going to check the bundled code in. So dev dependencies it is. So let me go over what we're installing. The first thing we're going to install is the body pics model. Now, remember the show and tell, this is a segmentation library first and foremost. It gives us some body pose tracking points. They're not awesome because it's meant as a segmentation model. And then we're going to install the face landmarks detection. This gives you all the points along your face and you can create a mesh out of it, a 3D mesh. The next one we're going to install is hand pose detection. You can look at each of your fingers and see where these points are in space. And then pose detection. This is where it tracks all your points on your body and gives you the location in 2D or 3D space. And then there's some helper stuff we're going to install as well. There's a backend WebGL kind of helper. It's an engine. It basically speeds up the math calculations because there's a lot of calculations here with TensorFlow doing this stuff. TFJS converter. I've forgotten what this is, but it is a requirement. Let's skip over that. Then TFJS core. This is basically the core of TensorFlow. I think if we're doing other TensorFlow projects, we'd need this core library to get going. So let's do an npm install and see what happens. Those packages seem to install nicely. I've also gone ahead and I've added a sample image, a temporary sample image to our project. It is a lady dancing. And notice the skirt. This is going to be important, or her dress. I guess it's longer than a skirt, it's a dress. Notice how it covers her legs. I'm really interested to see if our pose detection can actually accurately depict where her legs are underneath that dress. So this is going to be interesting. Now that our sample image is in, I'm going to go to my source folder and I'm going to add a new folder called TensorFlow. So I've already coded up something to work with the pose detection model. This pose detection code I've added, it supports a few different things from our npm package TensorFlow models pose detection. And what we do is we load the model and then we give it some configuration. We're using something called Blaze Pose for the underlying model. We're using something off a CDN for, I think, to load in that model, to the data behind it. And then we can call into a function called processFrame, and we're going to pass it an HTML image element, so just an image. And what it's going to do is it's going to estimate all the poses for this source and then return them to us. So this should be pretty straightforward, right? It looks easy, but as I promised, is not going to be. We will need to transpile this JavaScript first, so let's just do an npm build real quick. And TypeScript is being super strict. We don't return anything if the detector's not found, so we'll return undefined or something. So that should quiet it down. Now we can do a run build. TypeScript is still complaining though about internal stuff, so I don't like that. So I'm gonna go into my tsconfig and skip the lib check. This ignores type checking in all the node modules folders. So hopefully now we can run this build. And yes, finally we created a JavaScript file. So remember we had this page that you have to click through to get to the other demo. Let's take this over real quickly. And we'll start by adding a script tag to it. We're just going to take over this page temporarily, but we're going to import a module, so the type is going to be module. We're going to do a real simple import of the pose detection file that we just added to our source here. And we're going to import process frame and load. First thing we're going to do is load this up, load this model up, load this whole, like, the engine up. So we're going to do import, load, run that, and then we're going to process the frame of an image that we're going to have. So we're going to grab the pose, and then we're going to look at all the key points, and then for each key point, we're just going to console log them. And then we can add this image right here. So if nothing else works, at least the image will work. So let's try to load this demo. So yes, here she is. Let's look at our console log and see what we get. Yeah, this is starting to get the problem. The requested module, pose.js, does not provide an export name pose. So this error, it's a bit cryptic. It kind of gets into CommonJS stuff. There's also other CommonJS problems here. There's node polyfill problems where it's trying to query if we're using node or not, and it can't figure it out, so it errors out there. There's some other weird problems too, and there's too many weird issues here I couldn't figure out how to get this working with Web Dev Server plugins. Remember, in the last episode, we used Web Dev Server, installed some plugins that were Rollup based, and we got through this type of thing. But here, there's too much stuff going on, and plus, think about this. We want to publish this package on NPM. We don't want consumers to use this weird Web Dev Server configuration every time they want to use this. It should be an easy to consume component that we're building. So here is my plan. We're going to use Rollup. We're going to take those TensorFlow libraries and add a build step so we bundle them up as an ES import. We're going to solve all of these problems with a Rollup configuration, and what we're going to get is something like a library of TensorFlow goodies that we can just import as an ES module. You know, a lot of folks, they might use Rollup, a similar strategy, when they're done with their project and they want to bundle it up and put it somewhere on a web server for folks to use. We're going to do something similar, but this isn't the end of our project. We're just getting started. We're using this strategy to bundle just the TensorFlow goodies and be able to import them as ES modules. So that is what we're going to do. I guess we can start with some Rollup configurations. Now, for lack of better terminology, I'm going to create something called lib prebundle. This will be a directory where configurations will live. I'm going to add a bunch of JavaScript files to this directory. And you'll see what I mean once we add these in. So we're going to start with this body pics bundle. We're just going to export everything as body pics from this node modules package. It's this TensorFlow modules package. Same thing with face landmarks. Same thing with hand pose. We're going to export some constants out of this package too, just for convenience. These are all the names of the different parts of your hand. So like, it's going to be like index finger tip of or something like that. So that's why we're doing this second line right here. Media pose, same deal. Export all as media pose. Pose detection, again, same deal. And then lastly, we have TensorFlow. I settled on this configuration for using TensorFlow. We're using WebGL. We're also importing the converter along with the core. We could use WebAssembly. I'm not. I don't have it set up to. Maybe you'd like to, but so feel free to do that. I'm not sure how hard it is to get that working. So these are all the entry points for these packages that we're going to bundle. So we do need a rollup configuration. I'm going to add that rollup configuration right to the same folder right here. Just because it's kind of this weird section of this project that kind of stands alone. These imports we will need. So this is our strategy for this file. We're gonna need to convert common.js. We're gonna need to do some node resolving, which is basically what WebDev Server does for us. That, you know, it says, hey, TensorFlow, it's actually in the node modules folder. So this is what node resolve does. We need Rollup to do this as well, of course. Node polyfills. Like I said, we have some weird node situations going on in here where it says, hey, are you using Node? If so, and it stops there because the querying of whether you're using Node breaks the thing. So, and then alias. We're gonna take some packages and call them other things. So we can do some trickery right here. And also we're gonna do some variable replacement. Now, this is where I kind of struggled with just trying to play whack-a-mole and get things working, but everything is pretty straightforward until you get to that point where I think yes, it is in pose detection, replacing pose with window.pose because something gets lost in the common.js translation there. But other than that, it's pretty straightforward. We're just using all those plugins just like I said we would. So this is going to work. We do need to install all of these Rollup plugins though. So let's get going with our package.json. Now, Lit already has some of this stuff installed for us, so the only extra things we need to install are plugin common.js, plugin node polyfills, and plugin alias. So let's install those. And of course, at some point, I want to run all of this, so I'm going to add an npm task to do the pre-bundling. So we're going to add it, I guess, right here. Lib pre-bundle. It uses the rollup executable, and then the entry point is this TensorFlow config file. And now we can actually do the pre-bundling. So npm run lib pre-bundle. And so it's getting through these one by one. Let's take a look at our TensorFlow config again because I didn't really talk about where we're dumping these files. So I'm dumping them in a directory called libs. And let's check that out. And so yeah, we have body pics, face landmarks, everything we wanted to get. So these are ES modules that we can actually finally import now. So let's go back to our demo and see if we can get some of this stuff working. We are importing from our new file, TensorFlow pose detection. So let's go over to that. So instead of loading from node modules here, let's use our pre-bundled libraries. So we have a little bit of an API change just because of the way we exported stuff, but I'm not too concerned about that. So we'll just use pose detection.supported models and pose detection.create detector. So that should do it. I'm also being a little bit lazy here and TS ignoring stuff because I did not create a TypeScript definition for my bundle. So it's a little weird here, but it's gonna work. And yeah, before I forget, npm run build to get those new imports in line there. And then finally, I should be able to run our demo and crossing my fingers that it does work. So yeah, look at this. We're passing in this lady right here. We are getting a bunch of keyframes. We have right eye outer. We have right hip. And check this out. We have X, Y, and Z coordinates. We have a score as well. The closer this score is to 1.0, the more confident the answer is from the pose detection model that the point is where it says it is. So this is great, but I mean, it's kind of hard to know, does it actually match? So let's add some canvas drawing in as well. Some real quick and dirty canvas drawing just to see if we can match these points up to the picture. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to add a canvas to this demo, just a canvas tag. And then prior to detecting the pose, I am going to query select the canvas, set the width and height to exactly the width and height that I know the image is. And then I'm going to get the 2D context of the canvas. And so next we're just going to replace this console log, and instead of logging these key points, we're going to draw them. So we're going to take the X and Y of each key point and, you know, draw a circle, fill it in. So let's try this now. Look at that. So this is obviously a big image. As I scroll down, look at this lady. Her hand is up like this in this pose. And you can kind of see her legs down here. And look at this. This is her hand all the way coming down. And then you can kind of see her face kind of looking up here. So these are all the points in her body. And I'm also amazed because look at this. You can see her legs, even though her legs are underneath her dress right there. As you can tell, I am super excited that we got this all working. This demo does not do justice to the true capabilities of this TensorFlow.js model. In the next step, we're gonna see live playback of video. We're gonna do pose detection on each frame in real time. It looks crazy good. It is really impressive. At least I think so. In the meantime, though, I am not surprised. I am not surprised at all our Web Compon-o-tron blew up on us while trying to build this component, and I think this step is where it failed. I have had to use this strategy of what I'm calling pre-bundling a couple times before when packages are just too hard to consume, so I'm falling back to using Rollup, baking out these imports as ES modules bundled up by Rollup because nothing else just seems to work. But I think it's a good way to go. Anyway, in the next step, we're going to do some live pose detection. So I hope you're as excited as I am.